Welcome to Jor Talks Discipleship, a podcast where Jor talks about everything: culture, relationships, trends, life, theology, because everything can become a discipleship conversation. I'm your host, Jordan Kalarick in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Please call me Jor. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Jor Talks Discipleship. Hi, you've come back. This is episode 3. Are we real friends? I think we could be real friends. Hey, I was thinking about this. So since I have this platform now, I'm going to use it to farm information that I really want. So, okay, this is not related to discipleship, so just like skip ahead. Speaking of skip ahead, I'm like in so many side bars already. Speaking of skip ahead, did you notice that the intro is 15 seconds? Yeah, you're welcome. Because I remember my one buddy, Dave, really upset about a particular podcast that their intro, if you couldn't hit the 15-second button to like skip forward for their intro, because it would like be like a little bit too much into the episode. So Spotify at least has a 15-second skip. So if you're trying to skip the intro, I mean, the track slaps, but that's your choice. You're welcome. 15 seconds. We're already right in. Okay. What are we getting into today? This has potential to be a really quick episode. I don't know if it will be, but I want to get into what I literally think is like discipleship 101, like discipleship core for me, which is sort of an attitude adjustment that is required to set you up, I think, to be the type of person that, well, I'll say it this way. Jesus chose very specific people to be his literal disciples. He chose very specific people. And I heard a teaching once that has impacted the way I do ministry on like what types of people Jesus chose. And that has kind of been maybe like the pillar or building block one for how we build our ministry at the University of Pittsburgh. So today I'm going to tell a lot of stories. And I'll just probably honor a lot of people more than even just tell stories. That I want to be that type of person, and I challenge other people to be the same. So the fun way that we say it is that you need to be fat. Good news, joke's on y'all. I do that naturally. You need to be fat, and that is an acronym, obviously. But sometimes we like actually talk like that, and it's a little toxic. We're like, oh my gosh, there's the guy in my small group and he is so fat, and everyone's like, yes. But if you're new, you're like, bro, what? But FAT stands for faithful, available, and teachable. Now, if you've heard this teaching before, I actually feel like there's still going to be something for you today. So stick around, but I need to go on a side rant because I recently went on a missions trip. Shout out Mission SOS. Mission SOS is probably one of the best missions organizations in the world. They are seeing revival across Africa, and I think they're doing stuff in France, and I think they have bases in Switzerland. I don't know. Go to their website, sosadventure.org or .com. I don't know. Try both. You'll figure it out. I love Mission SOS. So I just went to East Africa with them on a trip, Signs and Wonders festivals. Incredible. Like people getting healed and set free, and it was great, and I brought my team. But I do have one problem with Mission SOS, and that is they got this wrong. They also said that you need to be fat, but their acronym, I love you. Go on an SOS trip. They're incredible, but you guys got it wrong. Their fat was, am I about to start a culture war? I love it. The drama, episode 3, we're coming for throats. Their fat, they're like, in order to go on an SOS trip, you need to be fat, which of course everyone knows. And I was like, faithful, available, teachable. And they're like, no, flexible, adaptable, teachable. And I'm like, pause. So let me just make a campaign. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like to submit to you today that my fat is better than their fat. Here's why. One, well, I don't know. I actually don't have a list. Do you ever do that? You just start with like one. Here's why. I think the reason my fat is better than their fat is flexible, adaptable, teachable. Here's what they're saying. They're like, you need to be flexible. Like no matter what happens, you got to be ready and you got to be flexible. Okay. And you also have to be adaptable, which I'm like, chat, that's the same thing. That's the same. You got to be adaptable. You got to be so flexible that you're actually adaptable. And then the way they talk about teachable, they're like, you got to be teachable because when something happens on the fly, you got to be able to like adjust. I'm like, that's the same thing. So SOS fat is basically like, ooh, like it's like you got to be yeah, like it's all the same energy. Like you got to be whatever it takes. And honestly, you do, because when you go on an SOS trip, stuff be hitting the fan when you're preaching on the streets and someone wants to throw something at you, or a crazy person interrupts in the middle of your sermon, like, or the police show up. You do have to be fat. So there's SOS fat. I honor you, SOS, but my fat isn't about being like, and like, and like, my fat. My hashtag my fat is about the people that Jesus chose. And I would say my fat, faithful, available, teachable are the three qualities in which I decide if I'm going to disciple you. Meaning, if I'm going to give you not just hours and minutes, I will meet with anyone for coffee. I'll go on a walk with anyone. I'll hang out with anyone. But we all know we have limited time. Who you give your time to, not just my minutes and my hours, but like my months and my years. Who comes on vacation with me? Who do I let come over the day after Christmas, right? Like who gets to sit in my living room when I'm exhausted? Who gets to come over to a messy house, right? The people that Jesus chose were people who were faithful and available and teachable. And that's kind of the criteria by which I use. So I want to challenge all of us. Let's just sit. Let's examine if what I'm saying is true. And then all of us, let's make a decision to try and be a little bit more one of those things. By the end of this podcast, let's set it into motion for this week. Okay, there's a quote that I have, I think is by the Master Plan of Discipleship. I wrote it down a long time ago. It's talking about Jesus says, his concern was not with the programs to reach the multitudes, but with the men whom the multitudes would follow. First of all, bars. Then it goes on to say, remarkable as it may seem, Jesus started to gather these men before he ever organized an evangelistic campaign or even preached a single sermon in public. Men were to be his method of winning the world to God. Oh, stop playing with me. Get me fired up, boy. That's sick. I think about this a lot because if I was the campaign manager of Jesus, you know, Jesus was like, hey, what's up? I'm going to hire you, Jordan. You got to manage my campaign. I'd be like, sweet. I'm in charge of PR. Jesus, his method was to pick 12 smelly dudes and go on a 3-year camping trip with them. That was it. He preached some sermons. He drew crowds, but low key, he would run away from the crowds. So he didn't even like the crowds that much. They'd be like, yes, this is such a good message. We're going to make you king. And he's like, bye-bye. So long. Like he would leave. Jesus didn't sound like that. I don't know. I was doing that, but that's like low-key blasphemous. On me. Or they would be like, tell us another sermon. And he'd be like, okay, great. Eat my flesh and drink my blood. And they're like, we're leaving. And even the disciples were like, Rabbi, this is a tough teaching. I, as his PR manager, be like, hey, can we stop with the weird sermons? Come on, more Beatitudes. The people love that. I would, if I was in charge of Jesus' campaign, I'd be like, okay, we got to get the whole world saved. And in 3 years, when you die and leave, we need everyone to believe that you're the Son of God. So we're going to get you on a speaking tour, world tour. Jesus, coming to a town near you. Blind eyes open, crippled, getting up and walking. He is here. Like I would try to get the most amount. I would try and build a mega church, honestly. But Jesus would look at me and he would be like, no, I'm going to pick these 12 guys. I'm going to lock in with these 12, but love the idea. I'm just going to kind of invest in these 12. And I'd be like, not enough. I love that, you know, dude, Matthew, Peter, Thomas, Thaddeus, Philip, Simon, James, Andrew, great dudes, but you're Jesus. So we got to get you around more. Come on. You know, I'll lunch with them is good. But Jesus believed that investing deeply in the right people who could make a disciple would actually lead to more people coming into the knowledge of who he is. And that's the model by which we have started Chi Alpha at the University of Pittsburgh. If you don't know, I'm a college pastor at Pitt, where just 4 years ago, we launched with like 8 to 12 people. This upcoming week, we're about to have our very first service for this year. I don't know, but I would imagine we're going to be a little bit over 200, which is so exciting that our people, like we have grown so much, but we have grown only because we're invested deeply in discipleship. Now, pause. I know the different contexts are different. This isn't about numbers. But I will say, I do think it's interesting that Jesus chose 12. I think we should learn something from it. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about faithful. Let's talk about available. Let's talk about teachable. First of all, let's start faithful. Jesus looked for men and women who would do their part. People who were consistent when other people would not be. People who would follow him when other people wouldn't. When things got hard or through difficult assignments, these people were faithful. And Jesus calls us to be faithful disciple makers as well, people who are loyal and steadfast. Maybe I'll ask you, do you do the things you say that you're going to do? Because if you are not faithful, how can God give you more? Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few, now be in charge of more. So if you were given 2 talents, have you done anything with it? Or are you just sitting on it? Because I don't have as much as the guy with 5. Faithfulness is something that is not as celebrated in our churches or even by me in my flesh as talent. Talent is cool. Talent gets you on a stage. Talent is what, builds a church, or a lot of mega church models, at least. Like, a lot of us want talent. I certainly do. I certainly thought that's what I needed to invest in. But I actually think that Jesus rewards faithfulness, not talent. It's almost like God isn't impressed with talent because he gave it to us, the parable of the talents, right? And in that instance, it's actually money, but I think it's cool because the words are sort of interchangeable, like talent and talent. And Jesus is looking for people that are going to be faithful. At the end of the day, isn't that the person you want to be your best friend? At the end of the day, isn't that the person that you want to marry? At the end of the day, isn't that like someone who, because if you have a freaking awesome husband that, is super popular and talented, but they're not faithful, you don't like your husband. If you got a girlfriend that's like drop dead gorgeous and every guy wants to be with her, but she's not faithful, you're like, faithfulness, honestly, now that I think about it in regards to a relationship, is the bare minimum. And so something we say a lot in Chi Alpha is, look, I don't need you to be a superstar. I don't need you to know the Bible like the back of your hand. Can you be faithful with what God has given you? There's someone listening to this podcast right now and you're driving to work and you don't have a podcast. You aren't preaching on stage. You don't feel like you're anything special, but God has given you something. And that is your employees or your coworkers or your customers. Be faithful with whatever God asks you to do there. And I'm telling you, he will put you in charge of more. There's a student who might be walking to class and you have never led a Bible study and you don't feel all that impressive. Maybe you're even in high school or middle school and you're like, I don't know. Be faithful with the tests and the classes that you have ahead of you and the friendships that you have. Be faithful to act in such a way that Jesus would ask you to act in those areas of your life. And I trust you, there will be a multiplication that happens, because at the end of the parable of the talents, he comes back and the guy with 2 who got 2 more gets more. And the guy with 5 who built 5 more gets more. And the guy with 1 who sat on 1 gets it removed from him. So if you are investing in the things that God has asked you to, I promise you, multiplication will happen. I think a lot about our friend, and this is very, very sensitive for me and probably for a lot of our listeners, but I think it's worth talking about. There is a dear friend that a lot of us who are probably listening know, who went home to be with the Lord unexpectedly and suddenly, and it was very hard, and I still think about her every day. Her name is Meredith Norris, and she modeled faithfulness. Meredith was awesome, but I think the area she excelled the most in was her faithfulness. She was a part of our church, and she actually helped us pioneer Chi Alpha at the University of Pittsburgh. So a lot of the people that are now seniors in our ministry and are leading small groups, Meredith was like their first mentor. Meredith was their first small group leader. Actually, she was so fired up. She was working another job, working at a coffee shop and as a children's pastor, but she would make time. Maybe she was available too. She was just the GOAT. That's why. But she would actually leave those jobs where she was making money and she would come and volunteer at the university and just Literally every girl that wanted to meet with her, she would make time for. Her living room was your living room. Her food was your food. This is who she was. And she, in some ways, and I don't think this is disrespectful to say, she didn't have any particular skill that was so impressive. Like Meredith's ministry wasn't blowing up. Meredith didn't have influence and followers and disciples because she was so goated on a microphone. Or because she was so, I don't know, like impressive, so, she had so much clout or aura. No, Meredith, just whatever Jesus gave to her, she tried her best with and was faithful. And she was so dialed in. And it was crazy because her influence kept expanding and expanding. She got in an unexpected car accident and went home to be with the Lord, and it broke a lot of us. But I will say one of the things that Meredith has passed down to all of us is just remembering her life. We were like, she just was faithful with what God gave her, and it impacted not just tens or hundreds, but hundreds of hundreds, if not thousands of people. The legacy of Meredith is now being passed down. I miss you, Meredith. I can't wait to get to heaven to hang out with you again. Say hi to Jesus for me. Shout out. Okay. So are you faithful with what you have? Even if it doesn't feel like a lot. Your kids, your ministry, your job. Available. Okay. Jesus looked for people who would drop their nets and do whatever it took. They would drop. Wow, I've been recording for a minute. We're going to fly through this because you don't want to listen to this that long. You got places to be. People that would drop their nets and follow him. These are people that had the time of day. Dude, they had careers. They were fishermen. They were tax collectors. They were zealots, busy killing people. Okay, but they left their life to do what? To follow him. Because there is a cost in regards to time to be a disciple maker, to be discipled by Jesus, and to be in the business of making disciples. If you want to make an impact, you might be too busy. And you might have to clear some things. Look, I think the thing that our culture does not like, and myself included, is margin. Bro, last year I kept a calendar, and in some ways that made me very efficient, but I realized I was going back to back to back to back to back to back, everything. I got to get up, and then I brush my teeth, and then I do my devos, and then I eat my breakfast, and then I go, and then I skip my devos low key, but then I work out, and then I go to campus, and then I have a meeting and a meeting and a meeting and a meeting, and then I grab a lunch, but I have a work meeting during lunch, and then a meeting, and then I go home as quickly as I can because I got to be home at this time. Literally zero margin. And if I am rushing through life, I don't have room for anything. So if someone's like, dude, I'm going through a breakup, can we talk? Yeah, I'll pencil you in 4 weeks. Or like, what if the Holy Spirit wants to spend some time with me? What I had built my life in such a way that I was trying to be efficient for God, but I was not available for any new assignments that you have. Now, I understand we live in America, but I gotta say, these people, these blue collar workers were not at the top of other people's recruitment list, but they were up at the top of Jesus's. Why were these no names, failed rabbis who did not go to rabbi school? They were just fishermen, tax collectors, normal people. Why were they at the top of Jesus's hit list? Why was he hit list? Why was Jesus at the top of his recruiting list? I think because they were people that would give Jesus that time of day. And that should be impactful to us because some of us are too busy for God to use us. We have built our little life, and I need my relaxing time, and then I need to do this, and I can't do that, or my kids have this schedule, and there's no wiggle room. Now, I know I'm stepping on toes. I know that I am, because I'm coming for something that you like, which some of us idolize busyness. Some of us idolize being effective or efficient or a hard worker. Like that's so core to our identity. And to make ourselves more available for what? That's so not like, what am I going to just sit around and breathe? What's going to go in its place? Like we hate that there would be idle time because we're Americans and we've idolized efficiency. Or some of us, I'm coming for your kid's schedule and you feel like that is a requirement in order to be a good parent or give them a good life. What I want to say is I want to give permission for everyone to contextualize this message. I'm not here to paint with too broad of a stroke, but I will say this. Some people in my ministry, they actually started to become good disciple makers when they quit 1 million clubs and just were in 2. Some of my friends had to have their kid in just 1 extracurricular activity, or in some seasons, none, so they could invite their neighbors over for dinner. And they could actually meet with their mentors. Sometimes it requires you, because every yes that you give is also a no, right? We know this. Every time you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. And so I'm just trying to say, like, is there something that is currently a yes that you are now having to give a no to the things that Jesus is calling you to? Let me shout out some people. First of all, I want to shout out my wife. I get a lot of praise for Chi Alpha and its growth, but my wife needs more. Alicia was working full time as an occupational therapist and, by the way, was dealing with narcolepsy, literally had diagnosed narcolepsy. Talk about tired. Shout out, she received a healing. I'll tell that story later on another podcast. But for now, we'll just say, dealing with narcolepsy, working 40, 45 hours a week, and then getting off work and instantly doing what? Rushing to campus to do one thing, which is to make disciples. Now that meant our house was dirty sometimes. Food was, we weren't cooking all the things that we want. There were sacrifices that we were making, especially in regards to fatigue. But she made herself available. I also think about my boy, Brandon Shaver. Shout out Brandon, Marine of the Year. It's your boy. Literally working full-time as a student in ministry school, but still making time, being available to make disciples. When you do that, I'm telling you, you give up certain things. You can't work out as much as you would like, or maybe you can't be involved in other cool things. But if we always are saying yes to the immediate things or the fun things, and we're not asking ourselves, God, what things are you asking me to say yes to? Our schedules will accidentally get busy with all the wrong things that are fun, but not building the life that we want. I also want to shout out someone, her name is Megan McAuliffe. When I first met her, that was not her last name, but your girl got married, but also chose to make herself available for freshman girls, even though she was in grad school studying to be an occupational therapist, and carve out schedule to have one-on-ones with these valuable, beautiful freshman girls who now are the leaders in our ministry. If you don't know the people I shouted out, it's okay. But the principle is this. Sometimes you say no to some things to say yes to other things. And sometimes you have to clear your schedule so you can be involved in the right things. Look, let me speak to everyone with kids really quick. What are we at time-wise? Golly, I can't believe you're still listening. For my friends that have kids and I am like in the throes, I like 2 under 2. Oh, just wait. I am just waiting because that's what I have to do. Everyone that says that to me, just wait. It's like, well, that's all. I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, not make a plan for now? Oh, just wait until they're talking. Just wait until they drive. Just wait until you get old and die. Like, I'm just going to be in the season that I'm in. Thanks so much. So right now I'm in 2 under 2. And when they're older, I'll deal with that. But for those of my friends that are like, have kids, and they're like, my life is like, wake up, go to work, come back, cook, put the kids to bed, bingo, bango, bongo. Here's what I will say. I definitely know that the Lord has all of us in different seasons. And right now, your primary responsibility is, of course, to your family. But before I had kids, I really respected the way certain families did things. And I saw things that, although I, was naive, I also was like, I want to build my life this way. People that chose to not be involved in every extracurricular with their kids, or brought people they were discipling. Like I remember to things like I remember getting groceries with people that were mentoring me. They're like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Want to come and talk? And we would talk for 20 minutes through the aisles. Blah, 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 blah. I just went through a breakup. I'm looking at bad stuff on the internet, like literally in the middle of freaking Aldi. Okay. Praise God. Like that shows to say, here are the things I'm already doing. If you want to come over, that's fine. Hey, you want to help me clean my room, mow my lawn? Well, there's a lawnmower there. So, okay. Do you want to help clean my house with me? Hey, I'm having small group that you're coming to. Come 30 minutes earlier so we can talk. My point is, I think that there is still a way to make yourself more available if that is what God is asking you to do in this season. And I think discipleship, maybe for me in the season I'm entering into, maybe it's a little bit less. Maybe I only see people once a month that I used to see once a week. I guess I just want to say, I still look at Jesus as literal disciples who left everything to follow him. And I'm like, yeah, I understand we have to contextualize that, but there is something to be said for making yourself available. Okay, I'm almost done. Sorry. Teachable. No, I'm not done. No, going back. Available. I think that sometimes we hide behind a lot of excuses. That's I think the thing I want to say. Like that's fine. There can be an exception. But why do we hammer? Well, I have kids, or you don't understand the company that I work for, or I'm a student. I'm so busy. My coach won't let me play unless I come to club in the off. And we hammer the exception rather than seeing the principle and then saying okay, I'm going to find a way around that. So if you are only spending your time disagreeing, maybe you don't actually want to be available. Maybe you actually just want to live a full life, which is fine if you're already doing all the things God called you to. But if God is asking you to open up your life more, to make time to be discipled or to disciple someone, then just be obedient and figure it out. Okay, I'm done. Last one, teachable. Faithful, available, teachable. People that are teachable are open, and we've talked about this on the first podcast, are open to receive feedback. They're hungry to grow. Do you run away in offense the first time someone corrects you? By the way, if you want to complain about your previous church, don't do it to me, because you just tell on yourself to me. A lot of people, I get it. There are some toxic churches out there. I understand that. But I think a lot of people, they come and they're like, oh my gosh, I just love your church. I'm like, oh, no way, me too. They're like, yeah, my last church. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they just didn't get this. And this guy told me. And I'm like, ooh, I have a feeling that this is going to happen here. And sometimes it does. There's an old proverb that basically there's a gatekeeper in this town. And when people come across, if they're moving, I don't know, is this the Oregon Trail type thing? I don't know. They come in their wagon and they're like, we're thinking about moving into your town. How are the people in this town? And the gatekeeper says, how are the people in your last town? And they say, oh, that town was terrible. That town was horrible. The people were rude and they were, and he says, yeah, unfortunately, there are those people in this town. You might as well keep going. And they go, and then another caravan comes. Hey, we're thinking about moving into this town. What are the people like, gatekeeper, in this town? Well, what were people like in your previous town? Oh, man, we're so sad we had to go. They were wonderful, and they were caring. And he says, I think you'll find those people in this town, too. Come on in. Meaning the perspective in which you have, I think just kind of carries with you. One time, this is crazy. What am I even talking about? Oh, being teachable. This is related, kind of not, but it's funny. There was a guy, should I tell this story? I think it's fun if I do. And I don't think I'm going to get in trouble. I have to think through the morality of because I could say this if we were getting coffee, but can I put this on the internet? Well, it's too late now. I couldn't just not do it. So we'll rip it and maybe I'll have to repent later. I'll try and keep it as general as I can. There was a guy. There was a guy that I know who basically was my church before was so controlling. And I was like, no way. As before I understood this principle, I was like, no way. Tell me about it. Let's gossip. And he was like, great. They were the worst. I have a wonderful voice that the Lord has given me, and I love singing for joy to the Lord. And I was like, well, heck yeah, you should. And he's like, and I was just singing loudly. And my pastor told me that I should sing quieter. And he looked at me like he was farming me being no way. And I gave it to him. I was like, oh my gosh, what a jerk. He's like, I know. And people around me told me that they love hearing me sing loudly and it encourages them to sing. And I was like, oh, I bet it does. And then I sat 2 rows behind this guy. A month later at church. And I was like, this guy needs to shut the heck. How great thou out. He's hitting the harmonies. Well, that wasn't even harmony. He's just freaking sending it. And everyone around me was like looking at him, and I was like, oh, hold on. That church isn't someone in my church should tell you to shut the heck up. And he simmered down a little bit, praise God, from whom all blessings flow. But it's like, do you run away the second that you get offended, or can you sit on some offense, take it to the Father, take it to your journal, take it to other mentors, and be like, hey, yo, is this true? Because if you're not teachable, I said this earlier, if you're not teachable, I think that's a ceiling in your life. I think you will only grow to the level that you want to grow. And you will never get past certain things that everyone else knows about you if you're not open to people speaking candidly. And I think, man, attitude is so important. Here's something I've observed in church culture. Very talented people, I think, can overly rely on their gifts, and they miss this step of development of character that comes through hardship and trusting God, when that those of us that maybe weren't good enough in certain areas had to. So if you're super talented, you kind of haven't had enough people correct you that when they do, or they say you're not wonderful, or they push back, it hurts because you've kind of up until this point always been told yes. I think that some of you listening are probably just straight up too prideful, and you need someone to crush you a little bit. Can I try that since I don't know you that well? I mean, in a general sense, crush you, and then it hurts a little bit less. But I think that Jesus wants to break that off of you. So let me speak to everyone that is under the age of 30. And then I'm going to talk to everyone over the age of, 45. I guess if you're in between there, screw you. No. Hear me out. If you're young, you need to get teachable now. Because if you do not lock in how to hear criticism and feedback and be teachable when you're young, you are so cooked for the rest of your life. Like the whole can't teach old dog new tricks. That's actually sometimes true. Not that you can't learn new skills when you're an old dog like me. Like I could learn new skills, but that quote or saying is probably a lot more true about attitude. Yeah, because you start to get used to feeling like, yeah, I'm always right. Yeah, I know this. And it's hard for people to break through and be like, hey, the way you handle conflict is a little bit toxic. Hey, you're kind of narcissistic in certain ways. Hey, unfortunately, it seems like you can never stay in any long-term relationship longer than 2 years, and you switch your friend group every couple years, and there's different people at your birthday party. That's on you. And you kind of just get this victim mentality, or everyone's out to get me, and that's just kind of my life. And everyone, you have to learn this now. Because the people that are the healthiest are self-aware enough to realize ooh, that was a little toxic of me. Ooh, that was a little unhealthy of me. Dang, I lashed out. I should say sorry. I'm good at saying sorry. If you happen, I don't know what my audience is. I'll look at the analytics later. But I don't know if people over the age of 45 want to hear a random guy in his 30s just ripping it. But if you're here, let me put you on game, because I'm at the age now where people my age are building their families, and they are looking at how the previous generation handled certain things and did certain things, or are operating as grandparents. And I'm telling you, your toxic traits and characteristics that maybe you could get away with when they were young kids. Maybe when they were 14 and you could just boss them around and you could kind of say it however you want, and the ends justify the means. And, I could power up, and these things that now they're adults and they're trying to talk to you, and they're like, hey, maybe could we interact like this? Hey, just interact with me instead of my spouse. Hey, let's not do this over text. These certain things that they're trying to communicate to you. You might be cooked because you have not learned to be teachable. And you've always been right. And so unfortunately, I just want to let you know, if you are not teachable, your kids that are now growing up, they're gonna see it. And I mean, just being honest, like I've sat in circles and they talk about it. They're like aware, like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be difficult to my parents. I'm just trying, and I know it goes both ways. I just like so opened a can of worms, and every parent is leaving a 1-star review right now. Well, you don't understand why we sacrifice. And I agree. I actually agree. Painting with that broad of a brush stroke is stupid. I guess I'm just trying to say, eventually you get locked into a mentality where it's like, I don't know what age it is, but eventually you get locked into like you either are used to making little small adjustments in your life because you know you don't always get it right and you're humble enough and you've had people speak, or frankly, you get really stubborn and very overconfident. And I'm just telling you, that's okay if you want to do that. But for me, I feel like that also means that it's harder for the Spirit to get a hold of me. And I want to be a person that God can use people to change the parts of me that aren't quite like Jesus, and his Spirit can, and sermons can, and Instagram reels and TikToks. Like, I want to be a person that I'm like, dude, I am open, God, to whatever it is that you want to say, however you want to say it. Like, I legit want to hear from you. Father, speak to me. And I don't want to be in this mode where I have just been so stubborn for 10, 15, 20 years that now almost no one can get through to me. Okay. I think that Jesus, as I'm wrapping up, Jesus didn't really pick talented people to change the world, did he? Nor did he pick the smartest or the most knowledgeable. He picked faithful, available, teachable people. Faithful, they handled their business and they did what they said they needed to do. Available, that was faithful. Available. They had some margin in their room to make time for other people or the ministry that God was calling them to. And teachable, they were open to being corrected. I think about the story of the rich young ruler, and he was talented and he was cool and he knew a lot, but Jesus said, come follow me and sell all your stuff. And he couldn't do that because, he wasn't available. Or maybe he wasn't even that teachable. I think of the person that was like, oh, I'll follow you, Jesus. I'll follow you, Lord. Let me go and bury my father. Wouldn't make himself available. Wasn't faithful to the mission. So here are questions I want to ask all of us, myself included, and let's all try and make one small adjustment so we can be in a better position to receive from God this week. Let's talk about faithfulness. What is an area that God is asking you to be more faithful in? Where have you maybe neglected responsibility in something that you are called to, whether it be with your kids, building your church? Maybe it's something that you already said yes to. And it's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have said yes, learn your lesson, but right now you gotta finish what you started. Be faithful. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. God, I pray every person listening to this podcast be faithful with whatever talent you have handed them, wherever it is that they're in, even if they don't want to be in that season or at that job or with those neighbors. Help them to be faithful to the assignment. Be consistent with God has placed on your path. Okay, available. What do you need to cut? What is just too much? For real now, where are you like, no. I can't do the things I'm called to do or see the friends I want to see or have the time with God I want to. Like low key, some of you, it's just your stupid phone or a video game system. Like you actually could be available, but you have all these little stupid games that you play every day. Maybe I'm just talking to myself. Or like you just have too much going on straight up. So what do you need to cut? What is worth investing and giving your yes to? And what is stealing your yes? What is just the fat of life that needs cut? And it might even be a good thing, but for a season to be faithful, maybe you need to make yourself available. Some of you need to redo your schedule and let the most important things go first. Okay, teachable. Last one. Teachable. Maybe just say this. God, show me. Yeah, this is a dangerous prayer. So you better be careful, but I want to say it. Join me. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it together this week. Straight up, I'm not just saying this on a microphone. I'm going to do this week. And maybe I'll come back next week and I'll tell you what it was. God, show me an area that you want me to work on this week. And I promise you, I will respond in a healthy way. Use people in my life, in love, please, to point out something. use your word, use a sermon, use this podcast, but like I want to be discipled by you. I am submitted to you. I'm under you. I'm not always right. I don't know. So I want to be teachable and I'm open to hearing from you. So whatever it is you put your finger on, I'm gonna say yes. If you want to put your finger on it sensitively, I would appreciate that. But my answer is yes, I'm teachable by you. Boom. Dude, that was fun. I hope you get fat this week to the glory of God. And hey, if you haven't given us a 5-star review yet, what are you waiting for? I'm out here losing my mind for you. Please, it actually would mean a ton, especially in these first couple episodes, just to give us a good review. If you want to comment something on Spotify, I read those, John, so that would be sick. I'm trying to get it like really, lit in the chat. Like I would love that. But please consider sending this to someone that you think maybe they could learn about how to get a little more fat in their life. The right fat, by the way. Please send this to someone that you think it would be valuable to. And yeah, thanks so much. Love you. Bye.